With the advent of Blackrock Mountain, dragon decks were experimented, and finally one came about which was worth playing on ladder. There are a few more, but this one's seen a lot of tournament play. We have Malygos, named after Malygos, which has been in the game since the beginning, but finally tipping it over the edge is Blackwing Corruptor. Blackwing Corruptor is in some way a basis for the deck, since it is the only card in the deck which uses the dragon synergy. Some of these versions do also run Blackwing Technician. However, Imp Gang Boss and Big Game Hunter are this deck's choice, this version's choice of cards. The other card that has allowed this deck to work is Emperor Thaurissan. So this deck's goal is to stall the early game with its minions. By the way, I will say if there's an aggressive meta out there, you should very strongly consider more Zombie Chow. This actually had 2 Zombie Chow for a very long time. You stall the early game with cards like Zombie Chow, with Mortal Coil, with Dark Bomb, with Abusive Sergeant even, with Ooze, Imp Gang Boss, Implosion, Hellfire, Twilight Drake. You stall, and then you draw cards of the hero ability of the Warlock, and then you play Emperor Thaurissan, and then you play Malygos, and then you double Soulfire them for a total of 18 damage. That's one way to win, but it's actually not the most common way. The most common way to win is just to play this like a general control deck. And the nice thing about playing a control deck when you're Warlock is that there's one of the best abilities in the game, Life Tap, where if you actually run out of cards, you can just life tap for more, or even if you have a lot of cards, you can always consider when you're at 7 mana, instead of playing something that costs 6 mana, or perhaps something that totals up to 7 mana, to instead just spend 5 of the mana and also life tap for more options, because you expect the game to drag on longer. It's a really good ability, that life tap. So 2 main ways to win: to drag it out into the late game, play the Malygos and burst them, or just to generally play your efficient minions and kill them with those. One thing that I forgot to mention is this particular version, instead of running the Zombie Chow, is running 2 Abusive Sergeant and 2 Big Game Hunter. You can Abusive Sergeant the opponent's stuff, and then you Big Game Hunter it. There's a lot of minions out there in Hearthstone which have about 5 attack, and you Abusive Sergeant them into Big Game Hunter range, and it's good. In the early game, you're generally going to be aiming to keep cards which keep you alive. I would have even kept Abusive Sergeant, because I would play it on turn 1. Already a little bit of a difficult decision between playing Dark Bomb and playing Ooze. This opponent's deck, when you're playing Cogmaster, you should immediately know that he's running a Mech Shaman deck. The Mech Shaman deck does run 1 very famous weapon, and perhaps 2 Doomhammer and the Power Mace, and I'm hoping Acidic Swamp Ooze will hit it. I did have a plan when I played that Dark Bomb. It was to, on turn 3, the next turn, tap and play Soulfire. Soulfire is kind of the worst card in this deck, but because of the Malygos possibilities, it's in, and sometimes you just play it for 1 mana when it's convenient against aggro, and that's fine all as well. Right now my hand is really good, so I'm actually going to tap before Soulfiring to dilute my hand, because I don't want to lose the Implosion, and I don't want to lose the Ooze. So I'm going to tap first, which will probably give me a card that I would like to lose more than those 2. It turns out that I actually like Sludge Belcher also, but I do like it slightly less than these 2. Discard the coil, that's fine. A few things to coil in that deck. A little dangerous to play the Twilight Drake because that deck does run Earthshock, but I will still play it over Implosion. That's reasonable enough. Here's an unfortunate thing. So there is the Power Mace, and the Ooze is there, but the thing to consider is that playing the Ooze would mean this still gets buffed, and that's no real solution. Furthermore, the only other play to do it would be tap. If Sludge Belcher is played, then this doesn't add up that elegantly. So, I'm gonna save the Ooze for the second weapon, maybe Power Mace, maybe Doomhammer, maybe there is no weapon, but against an aggressive deck it is just really important to spend all your mana. Huh, interesting. Turns out he didn't use the Power Mace that turn. Okay, since it's going to be more mana efficient this time around, I will both Implosion and Ooze. Unfortunately, he will still be buffing something with that, but it's going to be a little bit less impressive. That's an example of something where a big game hunter would be really good on, as I have the abusive and then I could just BGH it. Unfortunately, no such luck. Like all of the other Warlock decks, first think about if you're going to tap for the turn. An excellent card to tap into would be BGH, but in this case, I think going for the secure play rather than the hopeful play is better. One thing to watch out for with this deck is when you are holding a dragon, consider not playing it. There is never really a situation where I would have not considered playing a dragon here, but just something to consider. Oh, that's really good. Because of the Blackwing Corruptor, pretty much.
Was a mistake.
It's okay, I know he still has more damage.
Well played.
No tilt.
Well
Could tell.
Watch your back.
Your soul shall be mine.
Rogue is a pretty good example of a kind of control deck. This is one of the matchups where it's likely that Malygos is going to see some action. Against control, Imp Gang Boss into Twilight Drake is likely your best possible opening, so hooray, it's here. One thing to start thinking about already is that it's very likely in a control matchup for Malygos to be the winning condition. So Thaurissan usually needs to hit exactly one card between Malygos or Soulfire. Since if you get just one discount, then you can do 10 mana Malygos, Soulfire. That's a tough matchup. Shredder against Imp Gang Boss.
So many possibilities.
There's some consideration to Abusive Sergeant, but I'll let that one go. In general, this deck is aiming to stay alive, so trade away. This deck is generally not the aggressor, I should say. It's the deck which is trying to take it into the late game, make maximum usage of the life tap. That's good news. The Ancient Watcher doesn't really trigger anything on the rogue side. Unfortunate that I don't have a coil here. Still have to trade this before it gets out of hand. Thaurissan on an empty board is great, especially when you're hitting the combo pieces. Opponent has a lot of cards because of the preparation sprint. So this should go into the long game most of the time.
This guy's toast.
Ooh, that's a very good draw. Was going to Dark Bomb. Was going to play Dark Bomb and Inking Boss, I should say. Backstab sure would hurt him if he's using his weapon pretty aggressively. At this point, I'm going to really consider trying to hold on to that Dark Bomb, because 2 combo pieces were used. Because I hit 2 combo pieces with Malygos, the full combo on turn can be Malygos, Soulfire, Dark Bomb, which is going to deal 17 damage, so he's in range. So therefore the planning revolves around making sure that I survive until turn 10, which seems like it should be doable. But definitely with this deck, you often have to earmark a few cards as you cannot play these unless you are really, really desperate. In this case, Soulfire and Dark Bomb are not getting played unless absolute desperation happens. Oh, what a shame.
Choose soon.
Let's see, is this lethal with the Azure Drake? Sometimes, by the way. The other thing to look for is it could be lethal with Azure Drake and a bunch of cards, like 2 Dark Bombs and Soulfire. So Azure Drake, 3, 7, 9 damage, so not enough. So I'll choose the play which gives me the most long standing.
I've got the beast in my sights.
And I will also play the Ooze, because the next turn it is the plan to kill him. So make sure there's as little possibility that he kills me. In the case of Rogue, them having even a basic dagger out is helpful to them. And there's conceivably a hand that would kill me, although he has used both preparations. And it double threatens because one threat is coming from the sky with Malygos, and the other threat now is that he also has to worry about the board. If he only had to worry about one or the other, then he might be safe playing a card like Antique Killbot, but now perhaps he'll run out of mana to solve everything. Perhaps.
Choose soon.
It's also worth mentioning that Azure Drake Dark Bomb, his Azure Drake, is a really strong play, but I have earmarked these cards 17, and that is exactly lethal. That was actually very representative of how the ideal way that this type of matchup goes.